So, Alexander, welcome to Plymouth.
Thank you for having me, Dean.
So, how does it feel to be in Devon in the rain?
I don't remember a day in Devon without rain in all my travels here. So it's always a bit.
So, it's like the perception of Devon is it never rains down here. It's sun and sand and green hills. That happens for maybe 2 months a year, and the rest of the time it's rain. But come another time and you'll see it at its best. So thank you for coming down. You do something pretty interesting. You might not think it's very interesting, but I thought it was fascinating.
That's you probably noticed it on my face.
Just to kind of intro for everybody, what it is you do, like a little bit of intro to SamExpert and what you guys do.
I mean, the shortest speech I can give is we save costs, but then it becomes complicated because we look at various ways of procuring software and cloud services, and we tell how to pay less and get more for your money. That's effectively what we are.
So basically, right, if I just think about my world, right, I have a gazillion different subscriptions. This is just me for a minute. And I'm just an individual. I have a gazillion different subscriptions. Some of them I've never used in months. Some I've never, ever used. Some I don't even need.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just me. You say you save costs, but you do that for a huge company or huge companies where those little subscriptions could be hundreds of thousands and millions of pounds.
Yeah, and the bigger the company is, it gets more complicated. We have a cutoff at about 5,000 people. Because below that magic number of 5,000 people, we can still deliver value. But the return on investment becomes not that obvious. Normally, it's 10 to 1 at least. With smaller companies, it could be 2 to 1, 3 to 1, and it's difficult to sell that kind of return on investment because for everybody who's never done it before, we are a gamble. They think it's a gamble. We know we always win, but they think it's a gamble. So it's a hard sell. Larger enterprises, first of all, it's not a new thing. Software asset management, that's the SAM in SamExpert. It was a British creation even before year 2000, but it took off at about 2005. So many large clients, potential clients, they went through it already. They know that they can achieve benefits, and therefore they're much easier to sell to. They invite us. They know that we'll deliver. They usually know when they negotiate our price. They usually know how much they're happy to pay for it. So it's easy to work with.
So you would think, though, or the perception is that big companies would be able to hardball and basically negotiate better deals than the average person. So you would think a big company could probably have the resources to be able to do this themselves. Why do they need you?
First of all, yes, they can DIY it. And that's why I'm happy to give it away. Why not? They want to do it themselves, they can do it themselves. The benefit of inviting us is we can do it better. We can just do that extra push. We can bring in the everyday experience of doing the same for other clients, whilst normally their internal people could be extremely capable. But for example, with Microsoft, they only renew or negotiate every 3 years, and we do it on a daily basis. We know what's going on right now. So whether they hypothetically could achieve a discount of 25%, we can push it down to 30% discount. Further.
And that 5%, what kind of number could that be?
Could be hundreds of thousands, millions, depending on the size of the company. Obviously.
How can a company not see that themselves though? Because it must be like.
In many cases, oh my God, I'm going on the tangent, and some people won't some people may not like it. In many cases, in large companies, there is a clever procurement. There are experienced people. As I said, it's been around for 20 years. Sophisticated software asset management and negotiation around software has been around for 10 years.
Mhm.
So there are good procurement teams. But large companies, first of all, they usually have a lot of cash to just throw it at a problem. And if you look at the budgets of even IT-dependent companies, still, software licensing is a tiny line in the budget.
Mhm.
It's nice to cut the costs there, but it's probably not on the top of their priorities list. And what I'm leading to is our competition in that case are vendors, and we work predominantly with Microsoft. And if you look at our marketing, it's just focused purely on Microsoft. We do other things, but it's Microsoft centric. And Microsoft is a sales organization with years and years of experience, and they're very good at that. And they have lots of tricks up their sleeve. And one of them, with large organization, is what we recently started calling golf course deals.
Golf course deals.
Yeah, they go around procurement, they go around other people in the company, even after the deal has already been negotiated. They reach out directly to a CEO, for example, of a Fortune 500 company, somebody very high in Microsoft, up to Satya's level, can have a meeting with them, go on the golf course, and say, "You don't understand. If you don't buy this product, you're missing on the value." Something like it.
Yeah.
And then this is all circumvented. It usually doesn't end with that. So there's another cycle of negotiations. But some of the efforts have already been undermined.
Yeah. So it's a little bit like, it's not like a kind of a dodgy deal. It's a bit like, yeah, you can have the pro and that will do what you need. But it's like this elite version. If you don't really want to miss that. And then the person they have the golf course deal with goes, we can't miss this. We can't miss this. But maybe they can't even implement that, or maybe it doesn't apply, but the shiny object syndrome just keeps the deal rolling at the elite package rather than the pro package kind of thing. Is that what you're alluding to there?
Yes. Yeah. And there may be recognition at certain levels in the company and complete lack of that recognition in other departments. And good vendors, good software vendors, good salespeople, they attack a company from various angles. And there's nothing bad. I'm not deliberately not saying the word dodgy. There is a percentage of dodgy in those deals. There is, but it's tiny. There have been stories when a particular person in a vendor would push a dodgy deal. They're rare. However, for our marketing purposes, it's always a great thing to learn about a story like this, because then you can go on social media and become what's his name? Don Quixote in Russian. I don't remember what's the.
Don. I know you're about.
Yeah, you basically go on social media and fight the windmills.
Yeah, but it's like I suppose what you're saying there about the kind of software is kind of like a little line entry. It's a bit like me going, right, my car insurance is up for renewal, and actually I can get about 50, 60 quid off if I change insurance. Is it like that, where it's like, actually it's 50, 60 quid? In a department, they go, what's the hassle? So at IT level, they're going, it's 50, 60 quid, who cares? It's such a tiny amount. Or is it just a case of, I've got the car insurance, the renewal's gone up by 50 quid. Who cares? It's 50 quid. Let's just let it roll.
This may happen, but many procurement departments in large clients, they also do it for sports. They just like getting discounts on everything because they meet it on saved money. So they may be interested in tiny savings anyway. The problem with software is
when we're talking tiny savings, we're talking still by most people's standards huge amounts of money. But in a $1 billion company, $500,000, who cares, kind of thing.
That, by the way, that doesn't happen. So $500,000, nobody cares. That doesn't happen, even in large companies. So they would look at I would say a company of about 100,000 employees would still be interested in 100,000 savings per year.
Okay.
It depends. I'm currently actually trying to remember everything that we've done, and all these numbers come from what we did in the last 3 years. The thing with software is that it's not like car insurance as well. You can't just flip a company. You can't go from Microsoft to Google in a day. It
Yeah.
doesn't work like that. And the other problem is complications. In car insurance, you have 3 positions. You have your third person liability, maybe additional options, but the list is tiny. You can probably use your fingers on your 2 hands to count everything, all the options on a normal insurance. In software, there are so many moving parts. Do I need this package for this person? But what if I buy it this way? What if I buy it through that contract? Is it going to be used on the cloud? Oh, no, it's going to be used in that data set. Oh, the rules are completely different. And it's never an easy question when somebody asks, if I do this, and I want, so for example, okay, cut it out. But if I get clients that come to me and say, I have this server farm. How many licenses do I need to buy? I can't answer that question because I need to know what license they already have, what agreements they already have, what's the history of relationship. Is it going to be migrated to the cloud anytime soon? This is just from top of my head. There are more questions I need to ask.
So there's like
it's not a simple thing.
Yeah, because I mean, some people listening to us talk about this might think about it like, well, how many Word licenses do we actually need? Well, we've got 100,000 employees, so we need 100,000 Word licenses or Office licenses. But what you're talking about is like sophisticated Microsoft products that are kind of the infrastructure of some businesses, right?
This approach of how many Office licenses we need usually stops at about 15 people in the company. Then you get into cloud services, potentially your own servers. It gets complicated. It's not as a simple count of people.
So how does a procurement person kind of go through this kind of methodically? Because like, I'm not going to throw IT people under the bus, but I am going to throw IT people under the bus. There's things that we need, and there's things that we want, and there's things that we prefer. How does a procurement person who's probably not dealing with all of this stuff every day, because you're saying it's like might happen every 3 years or whatever. First of all, in the last 3 years, every business has totally changed, so that's an issue. But how does somebody in procurement who may not deal with this all the time, where the sands are moving all the time in this, in terms of headcount, how people are working, how do they, that's an audit, that's like a snapshot in time to figure out what does our company look like?
That also depends on the maturity of the company. I've dealt with organizations where procurement is very well aware, at least they know at least 80% of the truth. And I've dealt with organizations, especially in the government, where procurement would ask me, what is a Microsoft Enterprise Agreement? They have a renewal upcoming in 3 months, so they have no idea what they're dealing with. It all really depends. Normally, they would have internal people who would know it, again, at least 80% of the truth. And that's how they usually deal with it. Many go to their resellers. And for our business, I think DIYers are the biggest competition, but the DIYers are the biggest competition for everybody. For us, also, software resellers are the second biggest competition, because they provide such services for free. And I don't want to say that they do a dodgy job or bad job. The problem is their motivation is different. Yes, they help you save. And that's usually what the majority of companies do, unless they have a good internal resource. They go to their resellers and say, can you get us a discount? Do we actually need these packages? And they would optimize it for them, but not as far as somebody who's independent, because their motivation is to sell. I had a very interesting experience just a month ago because I was looking for a salesperson, and somebody knocked on my LinkedIn account profile and said, "Oh, I know this person, I know that person. They can recommend me. I used to be a software licensing optimization consultant for a big reseller name." And we had an interview with that person. And through the first 5 minutes, it transpired that although he knows how to optimize licensing, he still approaches it from the point of view of selling.
Yeah.
It doesn't put himself in the client's shoes. And after 10 more minutes of that interview, we realized we can't change that person. So we said, sorry, but you're not a good fit in the most polite manner.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you're a hunter and gamekeeper. You're there to protect the client and also get as much money out the client as possible.
Correct. Yeah. So that's how they approach it.
It's interesting. I want to do a tangent for a minute because you said something there about like government and not knowing really what they were doing. I was listening to a podcast recently, Chris Williamson podcast with Dominic Cummings. You know, the notorious Boris Johnson advisor. And he was basically talking about when the pandemic happened, the way that Downing Street got information about what was happening around the country was that fax machines were used to fax stuff to Downing Street, and then they basically wrote it on a whiteboard so that they could look at what was going on around the country. And that he was basically arguing that the government has not really taken the advantages of technology seriously. There's XP still floating around in government. Have you seen things like that where like the technology of like government business, you don't have to name names or anything, but where basically they're living in the dark ages still?
Well, my answer will be no, because I dealt with government entities which were pretty technologically advanced. So I haven't seen that. This is bizarre what you just
yeah.
told. I'm not saying that's a bad way of managing it. It's just bizarre.
It is. And it apparently took them, and this is fascinating generally, right? So if you look at when the government does a technology project, it usually costs billions, right? Any kind of, it's billions, and it will take 10 years. That's atypically what happens. And he was talking about this and now how when the pandemic happened, they built a reporting system in 6 weeks. But it takes like a certain kind of person and a certain kind of team to be able to work that way, to be able to do something quickly and kind of get something functioning and effective at speed in a culture that, in an organizational culture that isn't very good at speed and innovation.
I would like to restore your faith in the government at least a little bit.
Okay.
Because they, at least in the Tory government in the last 14 years, I haven't had a chance to work with the government entities during the Labour yet. And we usually don't work with government entities. Sometimes it happens. There are clever people, there are dedicated departments, and there are even government contractors that actually know what they're doing. And them rolling out that system at 6 months, I think that's a very good demonstration of their capabilities. And as far as I'm concerned, I hope I'm not disclosing anything bad here, but government negotiates deals with software vendors also at the government level. They're not maybe perfect. Again, can't disclose the details, but they're pretty good.
Okay. So how did you get into this world? Because it's not like, oh yeah, one day I decided to become a software negotiator.
No, nobody does it. So first of all, my previous business was an IT security company, and it was around 2000, 2003. The problem with that time and IT security is nobody cared. We were one of the pioneers,
You didn't work for.
shouting
You didn't.
everywhere. Nobody cared. Everybody understood that maybe it's a problem, but we had very few sales. And I was looking for new opportunities. And I was in a Microsoft's office, funny enough, drinking coffee. A friend of mine came to me and said, "Have you ever heard about software asset management?" After 45 minutes, I was completely sold. And that's how I got there. Nobody gets there on purpose. Well, maybe now
So-
these days, somebody in India, because in India it's a very big movement, software asset management. People get into SAM, as we call it, after finishing school.
So
But normally, if you look at the UK crowd of some consultants, people get there for various reasons.
it's not a career path.
No, I don't think anybody I know did a conscious choice and said, "I want to become a software asset manager." They were probably doing a role somewhere in IT or in procurement. Their boss came to them and said, "Take care of the licenses tomorrow." The thing is, what we say in our industry is, there's a way in, there's no way out. Can't leave it. Stuck there.
It's interesting though. You were in a Microsoft office. Was it a Microsoft person who asked you about that? Who said that?
Yes, I was quite friendly.
So that person, if you think about that, that person has inspired somebody to make it for them to devote their life to Microsoft earning less. Bill Gates is currently watching this now going, find that person.
I think there's more value for Microsoft than it probably is obvious, because what we still teach people how to correctly license and buy Microsoft services and Microsoft products. So yes, there is a downside that we negotiate better discounts, but then during the process, knowledge transfer in our business, at least in our services, in my company's services, it happens naturally. People who work with us, procurement people, IT people, during any kind of service or a project, they inevitably learn. And I think for Microsoft, then dealing with them becomes actually easier.
Yeah.
Because it's a very complicated world. And unless there's a dodgy person that deliberately wants you not to know the details, then in our understanding, what we do is actually quite positive. And the reason, by the way, why Microsoft did this in the early 2000 years, the early 2000s, can you say early 2000s, is because there was a lot of piracy everywhere, UK included. And obviously, Western countries were not as bad as Eastern countries. And for Microsoft, it was also a sales machine. Because when they promoted software asset management, they tried to raise the maturity levels, the levels of maturity of understanding the problem of software licensing, being compliant. The ROI they had from investing in that, at least what they expected, was from 12 to 1 to 20 to 1 in Microsoft. So you may think that they were teaching people how to pay less, but the ROI on that investment was up to 20 to 1, because people then understood that they are under licensed. Companies, organizations understood that they are under licensed. They started investing more in Microsoft, because unless you're in a dodgy region, you want to be compliant.
So how does a company end up under licensed?
Lack of knowledge.
Yeah, but I mean, how does that even work? Because every time you buy something, there's surely a license key, and I don't think most companies would not go, let's use a dodgy license key. How do they end up under licensing?
Complicated rules. Let's talk about COVID pandemic.
Yep.
You'll get downgraded on YouTube for the word COVID. But anyway, let's talk about the last 3 years.
Yeah.
When everybody started suddenly working from home. A copy of Microsoft Office on your laptop and a copy of Microsoft Office on a server to which you connect from home is licensed. They are licensed completely differently to each other.
Mhm.
And you may put that copy of Office on your server and not realize that everybody who connects to that Office needs a device license.
So hang on. Surely you license Office to a person, not right?
Office Online, yes. Lots of organizations. Sorry, lots of organizations still use traditional Office, which was licensed per device. If you put it on the server for remote access for your people working from home that don't have it on their devices, you still need to license all their devices they use. That's how you. That's one of this. That's probably the simplest explanation. The other is if you traditionally were buying certain server licenses, because not everybody is in the cloud yet, and large organizations, companies, government organizations, they still have their own data centers or they rent space somewhere and put their servers there. They need server licenses. Since roughly 2005, the number of servers has been declining because they were being virtualized.
Yep.
But these organizations continued to renew the old licenses. But licensing in the virtualized world requires different licenses. So you may still have 2,000 servers, which were physical. Now they're virtual. They require different licenses. So you may have a baggage of licenses you're not using anymore. And at the same time, a gap.
Yeah, no licenses. So, I mean, we talked a little bit about what you do. It seems to me like even now, Microsoft has quite a dominant position market.
It is the biggest company in the world as far as I'm concerned.
So why is that like not been broken up, or why is that not diversified? Why has another company not found an opportunity to compete in a more prominent way? Why is it like Microsoft?
That's a very difficult question. I get if I was to theorize about it, first of all, I believe their products are great. Not perfect. No products are perfect, but they're very good. They're useful. They've been polishing their products for years. Never underestimate their ability to deliver. Even if first version is not good enough, they will perfect it at some point. And they have become a de facto standard. If you want to switch to Google, the Google Office, whatever it's called, you can. But people are used to Microsoft's ecosystem, how it works.
Mm.
The way where all the buttons in Microsoft Word and Excel are, the way the spreadsheets work, you may switch again to Apple, what are the Apple numbers and Apple pages. The functionality isn't the same. And it's not guaranteed that the person on the receiving end, so your client, for example, or your supplier, will even be able to open that file and see it exactly the way you saw it on your computer. It became a de facto standard. So it's very difficult to get rid of Microsoft unless you purposely build a new business that is not locked in as a vendor lock-in.
It just, do you not think it's strange that nobody's tried to take them on in a big way?
Google has.
Yeah, Google has. Yeah,
Google has, yes. Apple, not so much, more on the consumer market. Apple had a business division. I don't know if you know about it, but they closed it 10 to 15 years ago. They
give up.
Yeah, they gave up. They had Apple servers. Very few people remember that.
So Apple tried to have a go at taking a slice of Microsoft's world,
Yep.
which you would think would make sense given how many Apple devices and how popular Apple, MacBooks are and everything like that. They would try and have a go, and they just quit.
It's amazing that Microsoft is strong in the business market, and they suck in consumer devices. Unless you consider Xbox a consumer device, then it's a good device.
Could I ask you a question about my own use of Microsoft? I don't know whether you've got the answer. How can I stop OneDrive coming back? I literally go onto Excel, right? And I save something and there's OneDrive back again. And it's like, I don't want it. I really don't
switch it off anymore.
I really don't want it. I must have so much stuff in OneDrive that I never wanted there. And I don't like this. Maybe I'm just grumpy. I don't like this whole thing where I just want my computer to be licensed. I do not want Microsoft storing my crap. I want to do it my way. And it feels like even now, like when you get a Windows computer, do you want to set up a Microsoft account online? No!
I think they even removed the ability to create a local account now from Windows 11. So
Oh my God.
I heard something like it. They want you to be locked in. They want you to be in their cloud. They want you to be in that ecosystem to be part of your life.
Dependency on their software basically becomes how they maintain their position.
Yes. That's my short answer. And the long answer as well.
I do wonder though, like, what's going to take them on? Are we saying basically, I know you make money from helping people save money on Microsoft a lot. Are we basically saying Microsoft has almost an impenetrable business model?
No, I don't think so. There is a potential with the cloud because they still own the so-called end user compute, laptops and desktops. But in the cloud, they have competition with AWS, and Google is somewhere in the third place. To be honest, nobody actually considers Google a serious competitor in the cloud anymore. As in any other business, there are two leaders in the market, and they have a shape now. It's Microsoft and Amazon. When businesses become truly cloud native, and especially with the current European initiatives, in a few days or weeks from today, at least European providers would have to support full service portability. So it will be much more difficult. Microsoft will find ways. Never underestimate Microsoft's ability to deliver. I will repeat that many times. But at least from the legal standpoint, cloud providers now are required to make sure that if this service is not unique, for example, it's a virtual machine, then it must be portable. So you can take all your virtual machines from Azure, Eastern Europe, and move it to AWS and vice versa. When organizations will become cloud native, the traditional Microsoft products on the server side will disappear. Even now, if you look at Microsoft's response to European Commission's allegations about anti-competitive deeds in the market, even Microsoft says that the share of Windows Server, even in their cloud, is declining. It's no more a strategic product for them. Then there is a possibility that at least in that part, maybe there will be, like in the world of drinks, we always had Coca-Cola and Pepsi-Cola, and suddenly Prime is everywhere. There is a potential for a unicorn that will appear.
The portability creates the opportunity.
Yes. Will it happen? I would say probably. I would give it a very high probability. Look at traditional companies that disappeared, like Kodak with their cameras. What if Microsoft makes a mistake like that? Anything can happen.
It's interesting that, like, obviously everybody's going for AI, and obviously Copilot has gone into Office and all of that suite. I wonder whether the kind of AI piece is where they're going to try and build that kind of protection in some way. Could they build could they get deeper into a business's infrastructure with the AI piece? That means, it's not work. It's too much. It's too difficult to make the shift.
Again, yes and no. I'm quite skeptical about it. I actually like their AI products, but on the other hand, they're so immature right now. They will become more mature again. Never underestimate their ability to deliver. right now it's not really anyhow fantastic. There are people that are getting disillusioned with Microsoft Copilot, and there's a bit of a mixed bag feedback on it. Will they ingrain themselves in the businesses in a way when you won't be able to cut them out? First of all, why would you want to? If you're happy, why would you want to? I still can't imagine how you can't just. It may be difficult. Let me put it this way: if an organization is consciously willing to invest a lot, it's going to cost an arm and a leg in migrating off Microsoft to an alternative solution. They can do it. However, those who tried, they failed. There are stories on the internet. If you Google, entire governments tried to become Linux only, no Microsoft, and then those products were shut down and they went back to Microsoft. First of all, probably there weren't enough drive for that shift. Secondly, economically, that wasn't a feasible solution. So, all in all, a solution on using Microsoft services, Microsoft software, and I'm not advocating them. I still like them as a technology company, but from the economical point of view, I'm not advocating for them. But the TCO of having a Microsoft solution, Microsoft-centric, you may think I'm locked in, could be actually lower than you trying to find a third-party alternative where the software itself and the services themselves could be cheaper, but the ecosystem around it, experts, services, could be so much more expensive. So it'll be a showstopper for you. Why would you? It's more expensive. Are you moving for religious reasons? You just don't like Microsoft.
So thinking about, obviously recently there was a whole glitch with CrowdStrike taking down Microsoft for some people. Mm-hmm. Do you think that the whole way the world's gone with technology, have we just created, like CrowdStrike's cybersecurity, right? It's there to kind of protect businesses from malicious actors. Are we deluding ourselves in some ways that, like, effectively all we've done is move the vulnerability up the chain? So in other words, we're vulnerable, so let's get somebody like CrowdStrike to come and absolve of us our vulnerability, but actually now we're vulnerable to CrowdStrike and their vulnerabilities, and the fact that some guy or some person randomly updates it without following a procedure and causes something like $500 million dollars worth of damages to Delta. Have we just moved our dependency on technology and our vulnerability to technology further up the tree?
Yes and no. I think everybody talks about CrowdStrike only because of the scale of the event. But such events happen all the time. I've seen banks being completely shut down because in an entire country, I won't call the names now, because there was an update rolled out to a banking system that was compulsory in that country. Mistakes like that happen. CrowdStrike is just too big. I think our biggest vulnerability that is building up right now is over-reliance on the cloud. We have moved to the cloud a little bit too enthusiastically. Mm-hmm. The only country in the Western world is Germany, where Germans are still like, won't buy cloud just because it's cloud. They are approaching this very carefully. They only buy it when they actually understand the benefit of it and they've assessed all the risks. The United Kingdom, in my opinion, moved to the cloud too fast. And one of the reasons were those government deals. They were good government deals, but I think we adopt new technologies a bit too fast. We jump into those fantastic worlds like the cloud without realizing potential consequences. Look at how many, again, you can Google it. I think yesterday was another 2-hour-long glitch in Azure because of another update that Microsoft rolled out in the Microsoft ecosystem. So that centralization in large providers is definitely a risk.
Is there an alternative, though?
the problem is, a friend of mine used to say, if the builders would build houses the way software developers code their software, one butterfly would ruin the entire world. If in the technology world, we effectively beta test software. There's nothing that is called a release. Nothing, not a single software, not a single service in the IT is fully finalized, polished, and robust. There's an accepted level of bugginess and an accepted level of potential vulnerabilities, where the management of these software companies, because they'll compete with each other, are happy to say, fine, let's release this version now.
Mm-hmm.
It's very unstable.
So
I'm not trying to paint a doom and gloom.
Well,
we have been there since, I don't know, Windows 3.1, MS-DOS. We're still alive. No?
Yeah.
Everything's fine.
So let me paint the doomsday, and then we'll kind of wrap up, right? So our vulnerability on technology, right? Obviously, the world is a more interesting and unstable place, right? And when the whole Ukraine-Russia thing came out, there was that kind of pipeline that got damaged, and whoever did that. If somebody wanted to kind of take somebody out to avoid, like if the UK, right, let's say another country decides we take them out, it could just be as simple as cutting the cables, right?
It could.
I mean, could our country function if we cut the cables between Europe and America, and then suddenly our server capacity? I mean, what would happen to because I'm assuming the government's got a plan for that, but what happens when all the businesses stop functioning because now they can't get to the data center in America or whatever?
It's going to be a disaster, I think, because regardless of all the laws about data residency, a lot of the data, a lot of the services are international or America dependent. So if we cut a cable to the United States, we're going to have a big problem.
And that's pretty easy to do, right?
Well, it's happening now.
Yeah.
I think the Russians cut the cable somewhere near Finland. Was it last year?
Yeah.
Then in France, there was a coordinated attack that they cut. What are they called? Large cables. Let's call them this way, in 7 points at the same time.
Just shows you how vulnerable we are, though, right?
There's a gentleman on YouTube. Can't recall his name right now. He sells mugs, which say "Clouds are for rain." I don't necessarily agree with that radical viewpoint, but I think we should build awareness of potential risks related to us accepting new technologies too enthusiastically.
Well, I'm saying all this, and I'm saying all this to you about resiliency and technology and stuff. I basically build my whole life off being connected to the internet. So if the internet goes, the pipe goes to LinkedIn, basically I have no business.
Do you have secondary skills? Like, can you fix a car?
I
could. Plumber?
Copywriting.
Copywriting.
Yeah. I used to work a printing press, so I could go backwards if I needed to. Alexander, this has been brilliant coming on. I think you need to come on again so we can talk about some of the more other interesting things about technology and the way our world is dependent on it. So I want you to come back.
Thank you, Dean.
But if you're interested in knowing about Alexander's work, maybe you've got a gazillion Microsoft products and you're thinking, wow, this is expensive. We've got a little bit cheaper here. Let's save some money. SamExpert are the go-to people for that.
Thank you, Dean. And thank you for having me today.
Cool.
And I'd be delighted to come again.
Yeah, we'll get it in the diary.